The Wetherspoons Chronicles book. 2. Chapter 1. The Wednesday Night War. It was Wednesday, the 14th of something or other, at approximately 1800 hours, though time in Gloucester city centre had always been more of a vague suggestion than a strict physical law. The theatre of war was a cavernous, converted 1930s cinema that had been unceremoniously repurposed into a sprawling public house known as the Sir Lance A. Boyle. It was a majestic, if deeply confused, establishment. It stood as a monument to architectural indecision, boasting high, vaulted Art Deco ceilings that still echoed with the ghosts of forgotten black and white matinees, juxtaposed violently with the modern, frantic hum of fruit machines blinking like panicked robots in the gloom. The floor was covered in sticky, heavily patterned carpets, possessing a gravitational pull so fierce they could rip the soles clean off a working man's boots and keep them for a souvenir. The pattern itself was a dizzying array of maroon and gold swirls, specifically designed by a committee of blindfolded corporate executives to hide spilled ale, crushed crisps, and the shattered dreams of the local populace. To look directly at it for too long was to invite a mild form of madness. The long bar stood upstage like a defensive rampart, a polished expanse of varnished timber that had seen more spilled bodily fluids, desperate pleas, and tears than a medieval triage tent. Downstage lay a vast scattering of numbered tables, bolted securely to the floor to prevent them being used as battering rams, rafts, or makeshift trebuchets during the local derby. Among these was Table 11, which glowed with an ethereal, almost radioactive prominence. It was the prime spot, situated with strategic brilliance near the entrance to offer optimal judging views of incoming patrons, while maintaining a safe, tactical distance from the freezing draft of the automatic doors. At present, the pub was relatively empty, bathed in the ticking of a large analog clock that slowly morphed into low-volume, generic, royalty-free dance music, the kind of synthetic humming designed by government scientists to make you drink faster without realizing you were doing it. It was the calm before the storm, a very cheap storm, mostly consisting of discounted cider. Manning the barricades was a platoon of staff, a motley crew of youth, insurmountable student debt, and deep-seated existential exhaustion. There was Mitch, 21 years of age, sporting short black hair, a sensible light brown beard, and the perpetually tired posture of a sensible man who had seen too much and understood too little. Mitch stood with his arms crossed, acting as a human shield between civilization and the beer taps. Beside him was Chloe, 19, whose long, dark brown hair cascaded around a face that wore a permanent, faint smirk. Chloe viewed the entire hospitality industry not as a job, but as a tragicomedy staged purely for her own private amusement, in which everyone but her was an underpaid clown. Then there was Laura. Laura was 20, possessed long, mousy hair tied back so tightly it acted as a makeshift facelift, and radiated the kind of terrifying, unblinking enthusiasm usually reserved for spaniels or mid-ranking cult leaders. She was armed with an oversized head bar girl badge, which she polished with terrifying military regularity. Further down the line stood Ty, 21, a towering figure with a large, loose afro, a small, immaculately trimmed beard, and a megawatt smile that could charm a wasp off a jam sandwich. Currently, Ty was mid-toss with a heavy plastic cocktail shaker, grinning at his own reflection in the optic mirror, completely oblivious to the physical laws of gravity, thermodynamics, or minimum wage requirements. Finally, there was Anna, 18 years of sweet, unadulterated panic. Anna was new. Anna was fragile. If a gentle breeze caught Anna at the wrong angle, she might shatter into 1,000 apologetic apologies. Anna's primary combat tactic when faced with a thirsty customer was pressing a big red button on the till twice with a look of sheer, existential terror, hoping the machine would either dispense a pint of lager or open a trap door and swallow her whole. "It's all in the wrist, Mitch," Ty declared smoothly, flipping the shaker end over end in a manner that defied several health and safety regulations. The flick, the catch, the smile. Tom Cruise didn't become a legend by looking at the till. He felt the rhythm of the alcohol. He became one with the spirit. Mitch, methodically wiping down the bar with the deadpan enthusiasm of an underpaid mortician polishing a particularly stubborn femur, did not look up. The damp rag moved in perfect, depressing circles. Tom Cruise wasn't pouring watered-down Bud Light for £2 a pint to accounting students named Tarquin Ty, he said heavily, his voice carrying the weight of a damp mattress. Put the shaker down before you take out the fridge windows. If we lose the Bex Blue display again, the manager is going to dock our pay, and I need that money to buy a singular loaf of bread. Laura, who was aggressively organizing the straw holder as if preparing it for a white glove inspection by the Queen Mother herself, snapped to attention, her spine rigid enough to serve as a load-bearing wall. "Ty, now focus!" she barked sternly, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of the condenser fridges like a rusty bayonet. "It's Wednesday. It's student night. The horde is coming. The sports societies are already pre-drinking in their squalid little dormitories. I want this bar running like a synchronized military operation. If the area manager walks in tonight, I want him to see supervisor material written all over my face. Do you hear me? Precision, speed, smiles. We are the thin, brown line of ale." Chloe paused from meticulously rotating the stock in the fridge and smirked downward, examining Laura's face with the clinical detachment of a biologist observing a frantic amoeba. "You've actually got Blue Lagoon written on your forehead, Laura, and unless I am very much mistaken, it's in permanent marker pen." Laura froze. The blood drained from her face, leaving her looking like a very tense, poorly drawn ghost. She let out a strangled gasp that sounded like a goose stepping on a Lego brick. "Oh God, is it off? Did it bleed through the epidermis?" she cried, grabbing a damp, beer-soaked bar towel and furiously scrubbing her forehead until the skin turned a violently raw shade of pink and threatened to peel away entirely, taking her ambitions of middle management with it. Before the tactical marker pen situation could be fully resolved, the heavy wooden kitchen doors burst open with a dramatic, cinematic slam. Out stumbled Anna, coughing lightly through a haze of acrid grey smoke. She was holding a smoking ceramic plate that smelled distinctly of carbonized hope and burnt wheat. "Table 42 sent this back," she announced, her sweet face scrunched in deep, tragic confusion. "They said they ordered a pepperoni pizza, but this doesn't seem to possess any of the requisite geometries." Mitch stopped wiping. The rag lay dead in his hand. He blinked slowly at the blackened, smoking squares of organic matter sitting on the plate. "Anna, we only sell toast until 1200 hours for the breakfast rush. It is currently 6 o'clock in the evening. Where in the name of all that is holy and bureaucratic did you get toast?" I made it," Anna offered weakly, her bottom lip trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. I found a historical-looking loaf in the staff room beneath a pile of old rotors. I put it in the grill. I thought they looked bread-hungry. They had that specific hollow look in their eyes. Bin it, Mitch sighed, feeling the collective weight of the universe and the entire floundering British hospitality sector settle heavily onto his sloping shoulders. Just bin it, bury it, give it a proper funeral, and get on the glass wash. Don't touch the food, don't touch the till, don't look directly at the customers. Just clean the pint glasses until they squeak. Just then, the heavy brass-handled pub doors swung open, and the old guard shuffled into the frame. This was the moment the night truly began. Walter, 70 years old, and clutching a crushed tabloid newspaper with wide-eyed absolute belief in every printed word, led the charge. He was flanked by Reg, 65, and aggressively scowling at the very concept of his own existence, and Larry, 64, who simply sat perfectly still and watched the world burn with the detached interest of a man watching paint dry in a burning building. They moved with the synchronized, arthritis-riddled precision of men who had done this exact walk every Wednesday for a decade, making a beeline for table 11. "Prime position, lads," Walter declared, settling into the sticky upholstery with a satisfied grunt that dislodged a cloud of ancient dust. "The tactical vantage point. We control the high ground. From here we can see the enemy advance from the fruit machines." "Wednesday night," Reg grumbled, his scowl deepening into a complex labyrinth of wrinkles that could trap a small insect. "The parade of youth, or the parade of lack of fabric, as I call it. Have you seen them outside? Skirts the size of watch straps. Disgraceful. In my day, a trouser leg contained enough wool to knit a sheep." "My neck hurts from last week," Larry added quietly, contributing his weekly allotted syllable to the conversation before returning to his silent vigil. Suddenly, the atmospheric pressure in the room seemed to shift, plunging by several millibars. A man entered. He was dressed entirely in beige slacks, a beige turtleneck, a beige windbreaker, beige socks, and, presumably, beige thoughts. He possessed the unnatural, unsettling stillness of a predatory heron stalking a mechanical fish. He bypassed the bar entirely, ignoring the sacred laws of pub entry, and sat at table 4. He looked at his smartphone, tapping the screen precisely once. He stood up. He walked mechanically to table 9. He sat. He stood. He moved to table 15 and sat again, folding his hands perfectly in his lap, looking for all the world like a man awaiting instructions from a mothership. "Check out Beige Dave over there," Laura whispered frantically, leaning over the bar, her violently red forehead gleaming under the downlights. "He's moved 3 times in 30 seconds. This is a drill, I know it. He's checking the structural integrity of the booths." "Maybe he's feng shuiing the place," Ty mused, polishing a highball glass. "Trying to align his chakras with the slot machine so it pays out the jackpot." "He's using the app," Mitch said, his voice dropping an octave into a register of pure dread. "I can feel the ticket screen trembling in fear." As if summoned by dark, unholy corporate magic, the electronic ticket machine beside the till emitted a long, terrifying, grinding beep that sounded like a robot being slowly fed through a wood chipper. Anna rushed to it, her eyes bugging out at the freshly printed thermal receipt that spooled out like a very long, very white tongue. "Order for table 4. It's a single garden pea." "Table 4 is empty, Anna," Chloe pointed out logically, adjusting her glasses. "He's moved to 15. The P is homeless." "But the ticket says 4, Anna wailed, clutching the paper like a holy relic, tears welling in her eyes. "I have to take the P to 4. The till demands it. The computer has spoken. Rules are rules, Chloe, lest anarchy reign." "He's testing us," Mitch muttered ominously, staring across the barren carpet at the beige man. "The war has begun." Chapter 2. The Bombardment of the Smurfs. By 2030 hours, the cavernous interior of the Sir Lance A. Boyle had transformed from a quietly weird waiting room into the front line of a devastating, sensory-overloading auditory war. The royalty-free background hum had been violently replaced by booming chart toppers, backed by the feral, rhythmic roar of a massive crowd packed 3 deep at the bar. Dim, colourful disco lights flashed violently, sweeping across a churning sea of sweaty, desperately youthful faces. Behind the wooden rampart, Ty, sweating profusely but smiling like a madman who had just discovered fire, was aggressively shaking 2 cocktails simultaneously, his arms a blur of erratic motion. Laura was pacing the length of the bar, barking out drink orders like a deranged field marshal commanding artillery fire upon an unseen enemy. Anna stood trembling by the glass wash, holding a tray bearing 4 perfectly poured pints of Guinness as if it were a tray of unexploded, highly volatile nitroglycerin. 2 woo-woos, a sex on the beach, and a massive pitcher of purple rain. "Go, go, and go!" Laura screamed over a thumping bass line that was currently vibrating the fillings in Mitch's teeth. "Mitch, get the lime cordials! Chloe, we need more VKs in the secondary fridge. We are losing ground on the left flank." "Cocktails and dreams, baby! Cocktails and dreams!" Ty yelled back, sweat flying from his brow as he attempted a majestic, entirely unnecessary flip with a frosted vodka bottle. The bottle slipped from his damp fingers, launched itself violently into the air, kissed the Art Deco ceiling with a hollow thunk, and ricocheted directly into the stainless steel ice well with a catastrophic, glass-shattering crash that sounded like a chandelier falling down a fire escape. "I meant to do that," Ty shouted over the deafening din, casually kicking a large shard of glass under the counter with his foot. "Ice needed crushing anyway. It adds texture and mineral weight to the mojitos." Further down the bar, Mitch was locked in a tense diplomatic standoff with a sociology student who smelled strongly of patchouli and misplaced righteousness. "No, mate, I can't serve you without shoes on," Mitch said wearily, rubbing his temples in a futile attempt to massage away an impending migraine. "I don't care if it's a statement against the capitalist establishment. Put your trainers back on or leave. Health and safety dictates no bare feet on a floor that is currently comprised of 40% spilled cider and 60% mystery sticky." "Mitch!" Chloe called out, abandoning her trademark smirk for a rare look of genuine, unfiltered concern. She pointed a trembling finger toward the corner of the bar. "The app machine! It's screaming again!" A veritable waterfall of printed tickets began to spill from the machine's jaws, pooling onto the floor in a tangled white mound of absolute absurdity. "Table 15, Mitch read, squinting at the tiny, pixelated font. "A glass of ice, hold the glass, and a side of coleslaw lightly threatened." "He's not at 15 anymore," Chloe said, tracking the beige man through the throng of undulating bodies. "I saw him slide over to table 6 when the university rugby team came in." "Anna," Mitch ordered, grabbing a ceramic ramekin of pale, depressing cabbage and a tumbler of cubes. Take this ice and slaw to table 6, not 15. Table 6. Intercept him before he orders a singular bean. Anna looked horrified, her knuckles turning white around her Guinness tray. But table 6 is the rugby team. They're dressed as Smurfs. There are 20 of them, Mitch, and they are completely, aggressively blue. Just do it, Anna, Mitch roared over the chorus of a heavily remixed Sweet Caroline. Navigate the blue sea, Godspeed. Over at table 11, the veterans had their necks craned entirely sideways, completely ignoring their pints of bitter to observe the chaotic ballet unfolding around them. "Did you see that one, Reg?" Walter asked, amazed, pointing a shaky, liver-spotted finger, wearing a belt as a skirt. Remarkable engineering, absolutely structurally unsound. Read somewhere in the Daily Express that the youth of today are evolving to not feel cold. It's the microplastics in the water supply. It thickens their blood, makes them impervious to the frost. "She's not evolved, Walter," Reg scoffed, taking a sour sip of his ale and glaring at a nearby balloon. "She's just drunk on VKS, sugar and vodka, antifreeze for the brain. They don't know they're freezing until they thaw out on a Tuesday." "I think my cataract is clearing up," Larry noted mildly, staring straight ahead at a flashing strobe light. "It's a medical miracle. The flashing lights are doing wonders for my optic nerve." Meanwhile, Anna was speeding past table 11, weaving frantically through the crowd with her tray of Guinness held high like an Olympic torch. In a tragic, entirely unavoidable twist of fate, she caught the toe of her sensible, non-slip black shoe on the rubberized base of Larry's abandoned walking stick. Time seemed to slow to a gelatinous crawl. The tray tipped. The geometry of disaster aligned. Anna dramatically launched the entire payload, 4 pints of dark, foamy, heavy stout, directly over Walter's head, soaking him from his flat cap down to his sensible beige trousers. "Oh my gosh!" Anna shrieked, dropping the empty tray with an almighty clatter that briefly pierced the music. "I'm so sorry. I thought you were a Smurf. You were in my peripheral vision, and you're wearing blue socks." Walter, dripping with dark liquid like a very confused swamp creature, beamed happily, wiping stout from his eyes. "It's good for the hair follicles. Don't worry, love. It's organic. Lots of iron. Put hairs on my chest, and I need them at my age." Ty leaned over the bar, witnessing the carnage with the eye of a seasoned war correspondent. "Don't worry, gents. I'll fix you up. A round of Ty's Tropical Thunder on the house for the veterans," he declared, furiously grabbing random bottles of alarming colors and pouring chaotic, glowing neon liquids into a shaker. "Ty! No unauthorized promos!" Laura shrieked, her voice cracking under the strain of command. "We are losing margins. Think of the weekly yield report. The area manager will have my badge." "Laura, look at the random man," Mitch interrupted, pointing a dripping, sticky bar spoon toward table 11. At the veterans' table, the beige man had inexplicably squeezed himself onto the padded bench right next to the soaking wet Walter. He was staring dead ahead into space, perfectly motionless, surrounded by the 3 baffled, dripping pensioners. "Why is he sitting with the regulars? Do they know him? Is he their nephew?" Laura asked, her eyes darting frantically between the till and the table. "I think he's hiding," Mitch deduced, his eyes narrowing into slits. "He ordered the coleslaw to table 6, but he moved to 11 to watch us deliver it to the wrong spot. He's actively trying to crash the system. He's trying to break our spirit with logistical paradoxes." Anna burst into fresh, cascading tears, running back behind the bar. The Smurfs are angry. They thought the coleslaw was a tribute. Now they want more. They're chanting slaw, slaw, slaw. Laura's eyes widened to the size of saucers. Wait, think about it. A man testing the staff, ordering random, nonsensical items to check service times, sitting in high-traffic areas, moving constantly to check cleanliness angles and our situational awareness. Don't say it, Laura, Chloe pleaded, pressing her hands to her ears. Please, for the love of sanity, don't. He's an area manager, or worse, Laura whispered in absolute freezing horror, clutching her head bar girl badge as if it could protect her. Head office, the brass. We are being audited in the middle of a student night by a man who speaks only in pulses. A massive thundercrack of sound shattered the pub as the DJ, lost to her own hubris, cranked the volume, the sound system instantly morphing into the heavy, earth-shaking bass drop of a Mr. Brightside remix. The real war had just begun. Chapter 3: The Mayonnaise Fortress. By 22:30 hours, the Sir Lance A. Boyle had officially devolved from a busy pub into a literal unrestrained zoo, lacking only the hay and a zookeeper with a tranquilizer dart. The music was deafening, a physical force that battered against the ribcage. Somewhere off-screen, an unseen choir of drunken, blue-painted men chanted rhythmically, with terrifying tribal unity, "Slaw! Slaw! Slaw! We want the slaw!" Ty had somehow acquired a neon plastic Hawaiian lei, which he wore with immense pride over his soaked uniform. Walter, Reg, and Larry sat in their booth, entirely cross-eyed, happily sipping from glowing blue cocktails that looked distinctly radioactive and tasted of pure sugar, battery acid, and bad decisions. But the true chilling horror of the night lay at table 20. There, illuminated by a flickering, erratic disco light, the random man had meticulously constructed an intricate, towering fortress entirely out of complimentary mayonnaise sachets. It was a marvel of modern condiment engineering. It had structural walls, an inner courtyard, and what appeared to be a tiny, functioning drawbridge made of snapped wooden stirrers. "He's at table 20 now, the Fortress of Mayonnaise," Laura yelled, full, unadulterated panic setting in, her hair finally escaping its tight bun to fly around her head like a halo of frantic wire. "It's a test of our condiment refill policy. He's judging how long it takes us to notice he's depleted the station. Mitch, we need to impress him. We need to deploy countermeasures, give him VIP service, unleash the premium snacks, bring out the dry roasted peanuts." "He ordered a plate of peas and a glass of ice, Laura," Mitch reasoned loudly, trying to be heard over the pulsating bass that was vibrating his liver. "He's not the CEO of Wetherspoons. He's just a lunatic. Let me go throw him out into the car park where he belongs." "I'm taking charge," Laura commanded, slamming a hand onto the sticky bar top. "Anna, take this tray. It has an 8-ounce steak, a chicken tikka curry, and a large fruit salad. Go to table 20. Do not drop it. Tell him it's compliments of the supervisor in training. Smile with all your teeth. Show him we have grit." "But he only ordered a single mushroom via the app," Anna protested, trembling under the immense weight of the massive food tray. "It says 1-button mushroom, unwashed." "Give him the steak," Laura roared, practically shoving poor Anna out from behind the bar into the swirling melee of students. As Anna scampered off into the breach, navigating the sea of dancing bodies like a soldier crossing no man's land, Ty climbed atop an upturned plastic beer crate behind the bar, posing like a modern gladiator addressing the Colosseum. "Ladies and gentlemen, For my next trick, I present to you the flaming Lamborghini, he bellowed to a group of cheering, vacant-eyed freshers. Ty, we have a strict no-fire license, and besides, that's a bottle of malt vinegar you're holding, Chloe pointed out dryly, not even looking up from wiping down the overflowing drip trays. Imagination, Chloe! You lack vision, Ty shouted back, waving the vinegar bottle aloft. It burns with the spirit of the 80s. It burns with passion and acetic acid. Suddenly, machine gun rapid-fire beeping erupted from the ticket machine. It wasn't a single ticket. It was a continuous, endless stream of thermal paper flowing out like an infinite CVS receipt, rapidly burying the floor behind the bar in a white, crinkling mound of bureaucratic terror. Mitch picked up a length of it, horrified, reading the rapidly printing text as it scrolled past his eyes. Oh no, he's hacked the matrix. Look at this. Table 20, 1p. Table 31, 1 ice cube. Table 43, 1 slice of lemon cut diagonally. Table 56, a ramekin of tartar sauce served with aggression. Table 14, 50 individual plates of garden peas. This blue drink makes me feel like dancing, Walter, Reg shouted over the music at table 11, a mad, entirely uncharacteristic glint in his usually scowling eye. I read online that blue dye increases virility and bone density, Walter replied, standing up with a surprising agility he hadn't possessed since 1974. To the dance floor, gentlemen. Let us show them the quick step. Moving with a terrifying, jerky synchronicity, the three old men rose and shuffled stiffly toward the flashing lights of the dance floor, like geriatrics of the living dead, leaving Larry's walking stick abandoned once again by the booth, a silent casualty of the war. Anna returned to the bar, sobbing uncontrollably, the tray empty. He wouldn't take the steak. He looked at it. He looked at me, and then he hissed. He hissed like a giant Canadian goose. He hissed, Laura gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. That's a code. HISS, High Impact Service Standard. He wants more. He wants table service, perfection. Bring him a napkin folded like a swan. Laura, stop. Look, Mitch yelled, pointing over the heads of the undulating crowd. The random man stood up from behind his mayonnaise fortress, kicking it over with a beige shoe. He was clutching a stark white plate containing 50 individual green peas. As if controlled by his very presence, or perhaps by a merciful god, the DJ's equipment miraculously malfunctioned, and the music abruptly cut out, plunging the room into a sudden, shocking silence filled only with the murmur of confused, highly intoxicated patrons. The beige man walked to the dead center of the room. He stared directly at the DJ booth, tipped the peas onto the highly polished dance floor, sat down cross-legged in the middle of the floor, and meticulously began to arrange the peas into a perfect geometric circle. Is this performance art? Because, honestly, I respect the hustle, Ty noted, stepping down from his crate, impressed despite himself. It's a ritual, Laura cried, clutching Mitch's arm with the grip of an eagle. A corporate ritual. He's summoning the regional director from the netherworld. No, I think he's just lost his marbles, Chloe said, crossing her arms. Or his peas, in this case. Let's call a priest or an ambulance. Roaring cheers erupted from the unseen smurfs in the corner who loved any form of public disruption that didn't involve reading a book. The random man, newly inspired by the crowd's energy, began scooping up leftover ice cubes from nearby abandoned tables and hurling them at the bar staff with the terrifying, practiced precision of a Major League Baseball pitcher. Mitch cracked his knuckles. A dangerous light entered his tired eyes. Right, that's it. Corporate audit or not, nobody throws ice in my pub. Not on my watch. Ty, cover me. I'm going over the top. Locked and loaded, partner, Ty shouted, dual-wielding two heavy soda siphons like six-shooters. Mitch vaulted over the wooden bar counter with reckless abandon, a battle cry forming in his throat. Mid-air, a rogue, high-velocity pea flew through the pub and struck Anna square in the center of her forehead. "I'm down! Woman down! I've been hit with a vegetable!" Anna screamed, clutching her head and dropping out of sight to the floor tiles behind the bar. Chapter 4. The Aftermath. At 12:30 a.m., Thursday morning, an eerie, haunting silence fell over the Sir Lancer Boyle. The deafening music was long gone, replaced by the ringing in their ears. In its place was the harsh, unforgiving, blinding buzz of the fluorescent ceiling lights, the dreaded spoons clean-up lights. These were lights designed to make everyone look like a recently exhumed corpse. The vibe had instantly shifted from a chaotic, glorious war zone to a sterile, depressing dentist's waiting room at the end of the world. The students had retreated into the night to vomit in various bushes, leaving behind a post-apocalyptic disaster zone of crumpled napkins, crushed straws, half-empty glasses of regret, and violently squashed green peas smeared across the patterned carpet like alien blood. Walter, Reg, and Larry were fast asleep in a corner booth, majestically draped in leftover pink party streamers from a hen-do, snoring softly in perfect, harmonious unison. The random man was gone. He had vanished into the night like a beige phantom, leaving only a flattened pile of mayonnaise sachets and a circle of mushed peas as proof he ever existed. Mitch was numbly pushing a heavy bristle broom through a sea of green mush and discarded receipts, his soul hovering somewhere near the ceiling. Laura was slumped on a tall bar stool, her head buried deeply in her hands, her dreams of area management thoroughly shattered into a million tiny, irreparable pieces. Ty's majestic, voluminous afro had completely deflated from the humidity and stress, hanging limply over his ears in absolute defeat, looking like a damp poodle. "I failed," Laura moaned into her hands, her voice muffled by her own despair. "I misread all the signs. The intelligence was faulty. He threw a jagged ice cube directly at my face, and I thanked him for his constructive feedback. I'll never be a supervisor. I'll be cleaning the sticky slop trays in the cellar forever until I turn into a fungus." "Laura, look at the app history," Chloe said quietly, walking over and handing a glowing tablet to her despondent colleague. Laura peered closely at the screen, her eyes red, tired, and defeated. He wasn't a secret shopper. He wasn't from head office. He wasn't even a human being as far as I can tell, Chloe explained, her signature smirk finally returning to her face, blooming like a dark flower in the gloom. "I checked the payment gateway, the debit card he was using to pay for all those single peas and ice cubes. It's registered to the University Psychology Department, Applied Chaos Theory Study Group." Mitch stopped sweeping and leaned heavily on his broom handle. He stared into the middle distance. "You're joking." "We were an experiment," Chloe confirmed, tapping the glass screen with a manicured nail. "A literal, walking social experiment. They were studying human reactions to non-linear stimuli and aggressive absurdity in a high-stress, alcohol-heavy environment. We were a thesis project." Ty blinked slowly, his exhausted brain trying to process the information through a fog of residual adrenaline and faux Lamborghini fumes. "So, the peas, the rapid seat swapping, the mayonnaise fortress, the goose hissing. It was all science. It was a stress test, Mitch concluded, a slow, tired smile spreading across his face, a survivor of the Somme realizing the armistice had been signed. None of it was real. We were just lab rats in a beige maze. We fought a war against a clipboard. From underneath a remarkably sticky table near the dartboard, Anna poked her head out cautiously. She had a small, circular, red mark on her forehead from the sniper pea. "Did I pass?" she asked hopefully, looking from face to face. "Anna, you served a tray of Guinness to an old man's lap, destroyed a pensioner's dry cleaning, and tried to aggressively force a premium steak onto a man who only wanted a single-button mushroom," Ty said gently, walking over and helping her up from the sticky tiles. You were the most chaotic variable in the whole room. You probably broke their entire data model. They are weeping over their spreadsheets right now. Laura suddenly sat up bolt straight, her eyes widening as realization dawned, the head bar girl badge gleaming under the harsh lights once more. Wait a minute. If he was studying chaos, and we survived the shift without quitting, crying mostly, or setting the building on fire, that means we're elite. We're statistically unshakable under pressure. We are the SAS of hospitality. In the corner booth, Walter violently jerked awake, coughing loudly and dislodging a pink paper streamer from his flat cap. He looked around wildly, eyes wide. "Is it Tuesday? Did we win?" "It's home time, Walter," Reggie grumbled from beneath a pile of discarded cocktail napkins, not opening his eyes. "The war is over. Go back to sleep." Larry stared intently into his empty pint glass, breaking his silence for the second time that evening. "I ordered a pea," he whispered, staring into the middle distance, a single tear of tragedy forming in his eye. "An hour ago. Did it ever come, or was it just a dream?" Without missing a single beat, Mitch reached down, scooped up a handful of dirty, squashed, carpet-lint-covered floor peas with his bare hand, and dumped them unceremoniously into Larry's empty glass with a wet splat. "Here you go, Larry. Compliments of the chef on the house," Mitch said smoothly, wiping his hand on a cloth. Larry nodded sagely, entirely unfazed, examining the lint-covered mouche. "Service in this place is second to none. Top-tier establishment. They really care about the details." Ty grabbed his leather coat and backpack, his irrepressible spirit slowly beginning to return, inflating his afro slightly. "Same time tomorrow, crew. I've been workshopping a new flair move involving a flaming sambuca shot, a blindfold, and a forehead catch. I think I'm ready to debut it to the public." "Absolutely not!" Mitch shouted, pointing the broom at Ty like a Roman spear. Laura clapped her hands together sharply, instantly snapping back into military mode, her resurrection complete. "All right, team. Break time is over. The armistice is cancelled. Glass wash is backed up to the ceiling. Tables need sanitizing. Floors need mopping. And someone needs to go wake up the Smurf passed out in the disabled loo before we lock up and he becomes a permanent fixture." "I'll do it!" Anna volunteered cheerfully, grabbing a toilet brush like a broadsword and holding it aloft. "No!" the entire staff shouted in perfect, harmonized unison. Mitch stepped forward, gently grabbed Anna by the shoulders, and physically turned her away from the perilous, poorly lit bathroom hallway. "Good night, Sir Lance Boyle," Mitch whispered to the sticky carpets, walking over and flipping off the main breaker switch, plunging the absurdity into darkness. "See you tomorrow for more absolute mayhem." A collective, exhausted groan from the staff echoed out into the cool Thursday morning as the rhythmic, endless sweeping sounds slowly resumed in the dark, preparing the battlefield for the morrow. Morrow. Good night, dear readers or listeners. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed Ice, Peas and Panic, the Wetherspoons Chronicles. Book 2. Please like, subscribe and comment. And of course, come check out my other books and old radio shows and plays. See you next time.